That's the introduction. Okay, before I went to New York, we were learning that there's something called davar charef, something that's sharp. Okay, so therefore, if you cut something sharp with a knife, let's say you cut an onion with a meat knife, so then the onion becomes fleishik. Now we'll soon learn how much of the onion becomes fleishik. There's two opinions. So anytime you cut so it goes into the object. Now how much of the object becomes, let's say you're using a meat knife. So let's say this is the object you're cutting, yeah? Let's say this is an onion. And you cut the onion with a meat knife, okay? Now it doesn't matter if the knife was used within 24 hours. It doesn't matter if it wasn't used. Sharp makes the the blemished unblemished. Okay. So now when you cut the onion with the knife, there's a machlek, two opinions say how far does it go? Meaning one opinion says it goes 2 centimeters. It's called kedei netila. 2 centimeters on each side. That means you have to cut 2 centimeters off the place where you cut. Another opinion says, no, it goes through the whole onion. So the only way the onion wouldn't be meat is if you have 60 times in the onion against the blade of the knife. Which is not, it has to be a small knife and a very big onion. Otherwise, so therefore, what do you do, halacha? Halacha is you go strict, both ways. Meaning like this. If I cut an onion with a meat knife, I have to take off 2 centimeters on each side. And I also have to be strict that the whole onion is meat. The whole onion is meat. So in other words, both things, restrict both things. It spreads all over the onion, so the whole onion is meat. Plus, you have to take off 2 centimeters from the sides. Okay? Now, what happens, another thing, what happens if you have a meat cutting board? Now, a meat cutting board has grooves, it's inevitably there's meat there somewhere. And I take an onion, and I cut the onion with a dairy knife. I cut the onion with the dairy knife, but on the cutting board. So the din is, the onion is a problem because, it has the meat, and therefore the whole thing is, the onion is treif. Okay, so if you cut an onion with a meat knife on a dairy cutting board, I said dairy, if it's a meat cutting board then it's meat, big deal. Yeah, it's kosher for meat. But here we're talking that you cut it with a meat knife on a dairy cutting board, or a dairy knife on a meat cutting board. Either way, it's the same din. So then the onion becomes treif because it has meat and milk in it. So that's that. Huh?
Nothing happens to the knife?
No, the knife is fine.
What about the cutting board?
The cutting board would probably stay good because the knife is not, it doesn't go that far. I'll give you an example. What happens, this happens pretty often by the way. You take an onion, cut it with a dairy knife, okay? And then you cut the onion, and then you put it into a dairy blender. No, let's go even before that. You put it into a parva blender. So you cut an onion with a meat knife or a dairy knife. And then I take the onion after I cut it, I want to blend it. So I put it into a parva blender. So many opinions hold, that the blender becomes either dairy or meat depending what knife you use to cut the onion.
No more power.
It's not parva anymore. But a lot of poskim, and this is the way most people in the world are makel today, some people say that it doesn't go that far to make the blender dairy or meat. No, you shouldn't do it. In other words, if you cut an onion with a meat knife, you shouldn't put it into a parva blender. If you cut it with a dairy knife, you shouldn't put it into a parva blender. Some poskim say also, for instance, what happens if the makel a step further, that what happens if you cut the onion with a milchik knife and you put it into a fleishika blender, so the onion you can't eat, but the blender still remains good. That part they say it doesn't go. That's usually the minig.
Can you remind us, before you said just a thin piece of meat you have to take off?
Sometimes you have to take
Now
off.
2 centimeters.
Right.
When do you do
No, the time we learned before is when you have to do, let's say, you cut it. No, you cut it with a clean, not something sharp though. You cut something like you cut a vegetable. Okay, you cut a melon with a meat knife, and now you want to serve it with dairy. You want to put cheese on it. And, yeah, so then you cut what's called kadei klipa. But here, because it's sharp, the taste goes more than the kadei klipa, then it goes 2 centimeters. Or according to one opinion, it goes through the whole size of the onion, through the whole entire onion. Now, okay, that's not.
onion, what are the sharp? What are the sharp vegetables and fruit beside onion? Garlic, onion.
Last time you said cucumber.
I said melons, cucumbers, yeah.
They are all sharp, considered sharp.
No, they're not sharp.
Right. So I'm saying.
No, because you cut it with a knife and there's pressure in the knife.
But what other vegetables or fruits are considered sharp too?
Garlic, lemon, onions, radishes. No, carrots not. Hot peppers. Oranges, no. Orange is not a sharp food. You're talking about radish, onions, garlic, horseradish, horseradish.
Ginger.
Yeah, anything. It's very salty herring, which is very salty. It's sharp. But normal vegetables and fruit are not. But because of that, halacha rice, that the best thing in a house is to have parva knives to cut vegetables with. Like you want to cut an onion, you always use a parva knife. If you have a parva knife, then you don't have any issues because it's always parva. So then whatever you do with the onion is not going to be a problem. Huh? What?
Did that with a plastic knife this morning.
Okay, but not always do people like to use plastic. Plastic knives don't always cut very well. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the best thing would be to have a parva knife. In Europe, they didn't. I'll tell you the truth, they didn't. Because they had no money to afford anything. They were lucky that they had meat knives and dairy knives. They have another knife. It was they were broke in those days, not like today. So it was a very big problem. So
there is a new knife that is made of ceramic.
Ceramic is not any different than metal in all these dinim. The only problem with ceramic knife is you can't kosher it. A metal knife you can kosher. Ceramic is not a kasherable material.
Can you use it now?
You can use it, but if it becomes treif, you can't kosher.
So China plates?
China plates are not kasherable. Anything that's earthenware, you can't kosher.
So China is really considered glass.
No, it's not. It's earthenware coated with glass.
What about Corel? Corel is glass?
Corel's an argument in halacha, contemporary halacha, whether the synthetic stuff. Some people say you can kosher it, some people say you don't.
What about the granite countertops, and now you've got the
Onyx.
which one?
Onyx.
What stone?
Granite.
They have now the synthetic stone.
Quartz.
Quartz.
Synthetic stuff is questionable in halacha if you can kosher it.
Even the company
The
that-
quartz you can't kosher.
What?
Even the company that came to do that stupid test said that quartz is considered plastic as far as they're concerned.
It is.
It has the resin to keep it all together.
Now, there's another argument in halacha today. Can you kosher plastic or you're not allowed to kosher plastic? So the halacha is for Pesach you don't kosher plastic because Pesach is stricter. But like the way I'll tell you, the way we hold is for ourselves personally we don't kosher plastic. for somebody going kosher or somebody that's not that religious, that, just throwing out stuff would make problems. So for them, you could kasher plastic.
How do you kasher plastic?
Boiling hot water.
Plastic.
Yeah. Even the thin plastics don't melt. They soften in hot water, but they don't disintegrate. They don't melt.
Plastic balea?
Huh?
Balea?
Plastic is balea. The question is, can you? Is it like cheres? It's not like cheres. The whole shaila is on all these synthetic materials, if they're actually kasherable or not.
Granite can kosher?
Granite, natural granite, but sometimes they make a granite composite, which they take granite, they grind it up, and then they mix it together with cement, and they make a thin thing. Now, cement is earthenware, so cement is not kasherable. No, granite is stone. Natural granite, marble granite is Evan. Evan is kasherable, even for Pesach. But if you have a granite composite, so then it's not plain granite, it's granite mixed with cement, which is earthenware, and that because of that you can't kasher it.
That's what quartz is.
Quartz is ground up granite?
Yes.
Ground up quartz.
That's right.
Ground up quartzite and made into new thing.
So that's the whole shiloh with quartz. I know that when they first came out, it's an Israeli thing, I think.
That's right.
It started in Israel. And then when it came out, years ago, I remember when it came out, years ago, there's a whole controversy, the Rabbonim Lubavitch, can you kasher it? Can you kasher? Some said yes, some said no. Typical Jews. Everything there's an argument. You should know in halacha, if somebody asks you what's the din, the safest answer is there's an argument. It's two opinions, at least two opinions. No, but in our circles we don't kasher we kasher natural granite, natural marble. That was for sure we kasher, but not with this. Okay. Now, what happens? Last din over here for today. What happens if somebody cuts an onion with a meat knife and they eat the onion? Do you have to wait 6 hours or not? How long do you have to wait now that you ate the onion that was cut with a meat knife?
That'd be not good enough.
So halacha says like this, you can eat not together with it, but right afterwards you can eat dairy. But there is an opinion, most people don't pass, there's an opinion of God that says that if you ate meat and then you want to eat an onion cut with a dairy a knife, you should wait 6 hours. But that most people disagree with that. But bottom line is in halacha, if you cut an onion with a meat knife and you eat the onion, you can eat milk right afterwards. Not together, right afterwards. Same thing if you cut it with a dairy knife, you can have meat right afterwards. You don't have to wait 6 hours. You have to rinse your halachically, you don't have to rinse the mouth. The only time you have to rinse the mouth halachically is between meat and fish, things like that. And no, even between meat and milk, even if you wait 6 hours, you still have to rinse your mouth. You need two things. Rinsing and eating something, plus waiting 6 hours. You need both. Waiting 6 hours is not enough. Plus it has to be a separate meal. Like for instance, what happens if you're having a meal with meat, okay? And you're just sitting by the table, you finished eating meat, you're sitting by the table, you didn't bench yet, and 6.5 hours later you want to serve dairy. You can't, you have to bench first, and then you can eat the dairy. Or, like on Shavuos, if you have a cheesecake, okay, you have to make an after bracha before you wash for bread. Okay.